أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We will continue with the 19th word, inshallah. So far we studied 6 droplets, and we intend to continue with the 7th droplet. This is 19th word, and inshallah we're starting with 7th droplet.
I have been reflecting on this topic actually lately, and so I feel very like I need to do a brain dump, I would say. But as far as going over what we read, I just would want to say that what stuck with me from ever since we started the 19th word is how the statement that the author started us off with, I could not praise Muhammad with my words, rather my words were made praiseworthy by Muhammad. And yeah, so that's really captivating, and I've been really thinking and reflecting more on the need for getting to know the reality, because definitely this universe points to something else. And so based on its transient nature, it's a call to my spirit to look for something permanent and eternal. And obviously I'm not the only one going through this. That's really human nature. One spirits really yearn for knowing what is it, what is all this for, everything that I'm made to experience here. And so in this quest for looking for answers to one's questions, human questions, you may hear some people who've gotten or who've got to know the answers to these questions. So obviously you would want to benefit from how human beings can make sense of their existence here, in terms of how can we live here with satisfaction that I'm living or utilizing myself the way I ought to, the way I'm created for. And yeah, I definitely would want to hear more from people who have solved this riddle of mankind, and yeah, and benefit from it. And yeah, that's what I have to share. I know it's not really a summary of all the droplets, but this was more of a personal reflection as we are all journeying here.
7th droplet. Now consider how, eradicating in no time at all their evil, savage customs and habits to which they were fanatically attached, he decked out the various wild, unyielding peoples of that broad peninsula with all the finest virtues, and made them teachers of all the world and masters to the civilized nations. See, it was not an outward domination. He conquered and subjugated their minds, spirits, hearts, and souls. He became the beloved of hearts, the teacher of minds, the trainer of souls, the ruler of spirits. 8 droplets. You know that a small habit like cigarette smoking among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with great effort. But look, this being removed numerous ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical large nations with slight outward power and little effort in a short period of time. and in their place he so established exalted qualities that they became as firm as if they had mingled with their very blood. He achieved very many extraordinary feats like this. Thus, we present the Arabian Peninsula as a challenge to those who refuse to see the testimony of the blessed age of the Prophet. Let them each take 100 philosophers, go there, and strive for 100 years. Would they be able to carry out in that time 1/100th of what he achieved in a year? Ninth droplet. Also, you know that an insignificant man of small standing among a small community in a disputed matter of small importance cannot tell a small but shameful lie brazen-faced and without fear, without displaying anxiety or disquiet, enough to inform the enemies at his side of his deception. Now look at that being. Although he undertook a tremendous task, which required an official of great authority and great standing and a situation of great security, can any contradiction at all be found in the words he uttered among a community of great size in the face of great hostility concerning a great cause and matters of great significance, with great ease and freedom, without fear, hesitation, diffidence, or anxiety, with pure sincerity, great seriousness, and in an intense, elevated manner that angered his enemies? Is it at all possible that any trickery should have been involved? God forbid. It is now but revelation inspired. Quran, chapter 53, verse 4. The truth does not deceive, and one who pursues the truth is not deceived. This way, which is truth, is free of deception. His way, which is truth, is free of deception. How could a fancy appear to one who sees the truth to be the truth and deceive him? So I am reading line by line slowly, and then stop me if you have any comments. Now, consider how eradicating in no time at all their evil, savage customs and habits to which they were fanatically attached, he decked out the various wild, unyielding peoples of that broad peninsula with all the finest virtues, and made them teachers of all the world and masters to the civilized nations. See, it was not an outward domination. He conquered and subjugated their minds. So I guess this part is we can split this into two. So the first part, he is mentioning the people at the time, because previously he said that let's go to Arabian Peninsula at that age, the age of bliss. So we are now again talking about historical time, historical facts about Arabs at the time. So they were having very evil habits, such as burying their daughters alive in order not to face the shame that is likely to come afterwards. But they were burying them alive. And they were fanatically attached to that. So he decked out the various wild, unyielding peoples of that broad peninsula with all the finest virtues. And those are the people that are unlettered. They don't have a civilized life. But within a few years, maybe 20 years, they become teachers for the civilized nations like the Persians at the time, or the Romans at the time, which were quite civilized nations, the superpowers of the time. So the people that are trained within 20 years, which were quite in bad character, became the best among people, so much so that they went and became teachers for those civilized nations.
And 20 years, it's nothing. It's like I'm already over 30. So It's not even one man's lifespan. It's nothing.
And starting the main character of the society being so bad, turning into so good is like increasing the contrast here. So if it was like a good or decent people, you come to them and train them to become. Well, to what extent you can change people? Because this is also about, in that part of the world, there is no well-established city life, for example. There is no kingdom in there. They were just small villages or small tribes. But then they become masters or teachers for very civilized kingdoms, the people of civilized kingdoms like Sassanids or the Romans. This is you can think of it like someone from a village in, let's say, Turkey, is being trained within village, not by someone who saw the city, Istanbul or New York. He is being trained still within the village, and then he is being sent to New York to train people. So this has been quite interesting because this person didn't get any education through the books that they ordered from New York. Okay, but still at least they had the knowledge of the city life or the literature of the city life in the town, in the village, so that they studied them and they became ready for the city. This is not either the case.
And what strikes me here, what is praised is not the Prophet himself, at least in this part. What is praised, the products, like the people. So it's not talking about a leader, let's say, in today's standard. And he was so successful, he governed such people, and they achieved such big achievements. The people, the products are so, extraordinary. They became so extraordinary. They became masters of these civilized nations. They became teachers of other people. So transformation in these regular laymen, this is what is extraordinary. Otherwise, it's not like, there was a leader who was so talented managing people, even though they were so uneducated, even though they were attached to all these cruel traditions. But he somehow managed to govern them. This is not the case. The transformation in these people is what is extraordinary.
Just to make a potential correction for a misunderstanding. So when it says master, this is not master as in master slave. This is master as in master Luke, like Star Wars. So it's like meaning that it's a teacher. So master in here means teacher. So,
okay.
So that people do not take it as, okay, they went to other nations and conquered them and killed them and become their masters and made them their slaves. Not that.
There's a question from Mohammed Sain. He says, what was the thing that they were so good at? Like what made them, I guess the question is what made them masters over other nations or teachers? What they taught to people? Would you like to? Sure, okay. Any comments on this? This is a great question. Anyone want to make a comment? Feria says something. She says meaning of existence. Meaning of existence. So I'm just, being blunt here. I think if you go to a nation and tell them, or if you go to a group of people and tell them, I will tell you the meaning of existence, I think they would beat you very well, like, and then make fun of you. So I'm saying that not to object what Feria said, but the interesting part, and I'm sure they didn't go and start talking about the meaning of existence. When you look at the life of the companions, the way they were brought into the community, most of the time I believe it's, I mean, I might be wrong, but most of the time it was something they could easily attach to it. Like, for instance, the slaves. When they heard about the equality of the man, the creation, that was, how to say, brilliant enough for them to follow. Equality of men, equality of human, with respect to Creator. Or even the rich people, or even the masters, like a message answering the issues they had in their lives, answering the questions they had as a human being. As he was saying, the author saying in the next part, that when you divide the 7 droplet into 2, in the second part, he talks about how the prophet touching their heart, how touching their soul, the spirit, mind. So it's not only about, giving them a meaning of existence or meaning of something. It's more like keeping them alive, like giving them a purpose to live.
So it's not just information-wise teaching something,
yes,
but teaching in all different aspects, as he's saying, spirit, mind, heart, and soul together.
Well, it's still interesting. I don't know. I think reading it's so easy. Like they transform, they become masters, they become teachers. But when I try to imagine such a thing, like thinking about, like reviewing my own experiences, how I was taught, how I'm teaching people, taking such an uneducated group of people and making them masters or teachers, it's something I cannot even imagine. Like, how would you do that? The first question, forget about, what you give them, what you convey them, what kind of, teaching you talk to them. How can you make someone so willing to learn? Like, how can you make people devoting their life, entire time, to be transformed? Even as a first step, how can you make someone to want to be transformed? This is so amazing.
And I guess to make a litmus test for ourselves, just to make it more practical for myself. Let's say in the work environment, there are people that I'm interacting with. Yeah, we are having some sort of conversations. First of all, the question is around what my day-to-day conversation go. I mean, other than conversations related to work, is my conversation reminding people of any truth or the meaning of existence? If it is, then is it raising some sort of eagerness in people to carry on the conversation? Or is it like, oh, okay, he started again. Let's just close the topic and everybody just turns back to their own thing once I stop talking.
I have such an experience, actually. Once I was talking to a friend in the previous place I worked. I was eating something at lunchtime, probably some fruits. And this friend came, said, we start talking. And I start talking about, as Faria said, the meaning of existence. I said a few things. I was like a friendly. I was not trying to teach something. Whatever I said, it was really in my mind at that time. Like I was just sharing with him. Of course, for the first time, usually this guy, he always talks about the football games and so on and so forth. This kind of stuff with others, I know. So I start talking about such stuff. Oh, his face changed, like kind of fear, kind of little bit anxiety, little bit surprise. And he said, Birkan, why you are talking about such stuff with me? Like he was, he really asked this question, like, why you are talking about such stuff with me? I shocked. I said, did I do something wrong? I mean, does he think, I'm trying to influence him or something? Like, I said, I don't know, I just, want to share. And then he relieved. He said, no, I'm okay with this. Let's continue talking. But I was surprised, he said. Because I guess this is not something we are used to. Like, we don't go beyond chit-chat. Do they say chit-chat? And neither people nor us, like, used to talking about such stuff. Apparently my style or my, the way I started the conversation was also a little bit strange for him. And he was kind of afraid, like, why you are talking about such stuff? Like, out of sudden, we're just sitting. No, anyway, sorry for the interruption.
So then maybe we can say that in life, those Sahabe, they were going to those other nations. But they were, again, part of life. They were either iron workers or merchants, or they were part of the social life. But in their social life, the way that they lived, the way that they personified the message was making them teachers to other nations. The way I understand for Muhammad Said's question. So whatever they were doing it in a way that people said that there is something different with these guys. So they seem maybe more happier, more content, more tranquil, just. So this is what attracts people's attention. Because a friend was saying that he used to be working in a pharmacy company here. So he said that he doesn't speak so much in general as a personality. He says, I am seeing that people are looking at me in a way that at least they say that this guy is different. Even some people came and asked him, why are you different? There is something different in you. So I guess if a person is interested in questioning further, at least there is someone who makes himself available for interaction and teaching. So I guess in this sense, going back to what Feriha was saying, yes, indeed it is the meaning of existence that they were the teachers for. But of course, it's not as vocally saying that, okay, come here, I'm going to teach you the meaning of existence. But the way that those people were personifying or living the message, in order to live like them, you will need to get to know why he behaves like this, what is the motivation behind his actions, which becomes the meaning of existence.
The first part of the text is also interesting. They're indicating in no time that all their evil, savage customs, habits to which they were fanatically attached. So, the examples you gave at the beginning, right? They burying their children and so on. I guess it's easy to take it historically, saying that, at one time such a nation lived and they were so terrible. They were so attached to their customs. They were fanatically attached. They had savage customs, habits. I guess the question is it any different when it comes to us? Because when I look at myself, it's obvious that I'm not the master of any nation, or I'm not the teacher the most. So maybe I'm at the stage that they were at the beginning. Like maybe I'm not any different when it comes to having savage customs and habits, or being fanatically attached to my traditions. So how should we understand this part? Like, what is the savage customs and habits of Yusuf Çelikbal? What is it that he's fanatically attached to? Anyone wants to take a shot, not about Yusuf, but herself or himself? Or what you experience with people? Like, what are the savage customs or traditions that we are fanatically attached to?
I mean, I think an obvious reaction just to reading this would be just if one's worldview is geared towards attachment to events and objects that one is made to experience here. Obviously, that's just going to be torture. Attaching yourself to objects, events, and looking forward to it, rather than utilizing these objects and events for a more meaningful purpose, a purpose that satisfies one's human expectations, I would say.
Any other comments? Abdurrahman, would you like to share with us your thoughts on that? If your mic is working. Anyone else? Aisha, would you like to share? No? What about you, Brian?
I guess another point that just occurred to my mind. So when you think of the word savage, right, it's very strong and it's associated usually with, animals, right, savagery. So really living in this world just to satisfy your animalistic appetite, right, and just living day to day on this, then definitely it becomes a habit that needs to be steered in the right direction, I would say.
There's a comment from Qasim. Let me read them then. Qasim says, I am a little unclear of what question we are answering. Is the question, why are we attached to certain ways?
So I think a practical example that comes to my mind from today's society life is, for example, the way the economy works in here, all over the world as well, not only in here. So with the interest. So you just throw your money in there. Somebody works with your money. You don't work at all, and you take twice what you give in a period of time just because you gave the money to that person. And this person is working very hard, and you are living a comfortable life because of this person's hard work. And this is the basics of today's society. You cannot question this, you cannot get out of this. If you challenge it, you're going to be considered as stupid. So, and it's not even considered as savagery. It is part of life.
I guess that was the same with them, right? That the era of, what is called Jahiliyyah? Ignorance, era of ignorance. They wouldn't call it as savage. They would say, this is our customs, or even some of them were like a sign of reputation or sign of respect.
So I guess the same thing might be applied for, at the time they were burying their girls alive, daughters alive. And in today's society, especially women are being used as common property, like just being reduced to material body, totally ignoring the human aspect, like the spirit or the qualities within spirit. but being reduced to body, and this is being mentioned as civilization or being advanced.
And from this perspective, actually, we can say like they were only burying their daughters, we're burying all the children. Like even in today's society, even the men, the conception of men is not any different anymore. Like if you take your body as the earth, which is kind of true, we put our souls, our spirits, the humanity, under the earth. We bury it. We bury it under the dress, the nice dresses we wear. We kill them. We kill ourselves. I really believe that looking like when you look from the right perspective, you see that nothing changes in humanity. And all the shapes, the names, colors, they constantly change. Traditions, transform from one tradition to another. But the gist of it, not the gist of it, but the core of it, the essence of it is always the same. Slavery never changed. Never. Like at every time point of the humankind, human history, always there's a slavery. The name is changing, that's all. And look at the many people who, like the condition they work. And how we, like including myself, benefiting from their bad conditions. Like before we had all these, what's the word? Eşkıya? Bandits, like these security issues and so on. Nothing changed. Try to travel from A to B. You have the risk of, many risk of being killed or captured or whatever. Nothing changed.
Now we have bandits in internet.
Yes. Or like anytime you travel with the plane, all these security checks you have to go through. You have to. It's not like, oh, it's good for you. You have to go through it. It is so unsecure traveling, or the way we use our money, the way we consume, the way we became the slaves of some certain people who get their livings through our consumptions, as if we work for them. Just like, villagers working for the owner of the village at that time. Nothing changes. So why I'm saying this is because this kind of transformation is always required in every lifetime, for every human being, in her or his lifetime. She or he needs such a transformation. Because the way we start our living, the way we start our life, it's always savage, fanatically attached to certain traditions, and some group of people, some message, I don't know, the X needs to be there to transform them. And I guess the question is, are we among those who are transformed? Are we among those who become teacher of the nations? Or we continue our lives as we go?
So in this context again, the people that he worked with were really the people that were illiterate or uneducated. Number of people that know reading or writing in Mecca at the time they say was 17. I heard such a number. So such an illiterate community is why the vocal tradition were common in there, no letters. And in terms of character, we are hearing how they were behaving, the slavery was there, and then this and that, they were burying their children, whatever. But then the Prophet started with such people. This was the people that was available for him. Then he made such a group of people out of them that they became the exemplars for the humanity. So this high contrast tells something about the messenger as well, saying that because if he was coming up with a message might have been beautiful, but he himself was not convinced about it, or was not behaving with it, was not living with it. No, the message was beautiful, but he was also representing the message in his life, so that people really absorbed it. And that the second part of the paragraph, it was not an outward domination. He conquered and subjugated their minds, spirits, hearts, and souls. He became the beloved of hearts, the teacher of minds, the trainer of souls, the ruler of spirits. Because we're still on earth today, there are some quote-unquote Sharia nations or Sharia governments which are forcibly trying to put people into a shape. And we are seeing that the people that somehow come to this other part of the world from that regime are behaving in a way that showing that those people are not convinced at all. They are under this shape because of the power of this government, but nothing really changes in them. But this was not the case with the messenger. He was not strong worldly in the worldly sense of the word, but he was so much influential or dominated over people that it is with their heart, spirits, mind, and soul.
When you look at the narrations about the Prophet, how he dealt with the people, in details you see very strange things, like people coming to him asking something. As you were saying, he's not being worldly, any dominating or powerful. Sometimes in narration, he's just sad with what he saw. Like he's sad, that's all. Doesn't say anything. Or people comes and tells him some unacceptable things, and he becomes sad. This is not a picture that we, accustomed to hear when we hear about a leader. Most of them, not most of them, but at least some of them in narrations, again, this is very interesting. We hear narrations in which, let's say, a lady comes and tells him something without knowing that he is the prophet. Can you believe such thing? Think about a leader of our society, a religious leader. Like in Turkey, there are certain names. Can you believe somebody would see him on the way and wouldn't know who he was? That's impossible. For a prophet, like a prophet of the religion, forget about the local sheikh or something, prophet. But still, some people wouldn't know him. I'm not, trying to say that he was not influential or so on. His image or his own, let's say, not personality, but body was not the point at all. Because again, in the same narrations, when they warn the lady saying, what did he do? Like he's a prophet, to go and apologize. We have such narrations, right? She knows what they talk about. That means she heard about the message. That means she knew that there was a prophet, respectful and so on and so forth, without even knowing his face. Sure, time was different, there was no media and so on and so forth, but still, it was not about his image. It was not about how he looked like or how he acted like in terms of being, like in terms of dominating people. That's unbelievable. But still he was able to, quote unquote, govern the people. This is how we take it, right, today? We are so proud, like he was a great statesman. He was a great leader. What kind of leader are you talking about? The lady comes and doesn't even know who is.
Any comments for 7th droplet before we proceed to 8? No. And 8 droplets. You know that a small habit like cigarette smoking among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with great effort. I guess there's an example of this in the United States in the 1930s. There was an alcohol ban, but they couldn't cope with it because people started producing alcohol unofficially, and they figured out that then they cannot take tax out of that anymore. So they officially released people to drink, allowed people to drink. And this is being done with the power of state, so the state is not able to prevent it. And I guess, for the example of alcohol, let's say, this is still the case in many Sharia countries. So it's officially forbidden, but under the hood, things are going on. And government is aware of that, but...
aware of that, or... I mean, I don't want to, to say something about the people I don't know, but probably... Anyway, it's
So you know that a small habit like a cigarette smoking among a small nation can be removed permanently only by a powerful ruler with great effort. And also, for the example of cigarettes, I guess this was the problem with the adolescents. Because for the adolescents, once they start smoking at that age, it used to be a nightmare for the fathers back in the day among my friends or the friend circles. So if they start smoking, their father is not able to stop his son from smoking. And this is just a small habit. This person is being removed numerous ingrained habits from intractable, fanatical large nations with slight outward power and little effort in a short period of time. And in their place, he so established exalted qualities that they became as firm as if they had mingled with their very blood. He achieved very many extraordinary feats like this. Thus, we present Arabian Peninsula as a challenge to those who refuse to see the testimony of the blessed age of the Prophet. Let them each take 100 philosophers, go there, and strive for 100 years. Would they be able to carry out in that time 100th of what he achieved in a year?
I love this one, like this challenge. Take them 100 philosophers. With all these powers, like the media, the books, or whatever, we cannot change anything. The people like trying to establish some moral values, thousands of years, still nothing.
And I guess this had been also practically done during the colonization era. And the Europeans were colonizing, let's say, Egypt or India. So they took their scholars to there. They were not simply going with armies, they were going with scholars. And this is where this Orientalism is coming from. So the Orientalists, as we know them today, are the scholars that those big commanders take with them to that nation for both two reasons, actually. One is so that they learn the dynamics of the environment so that it's going to be easier for them to rule them. But at the same time, they offered an education to quote-unquote civilize them, because according to Western mind, those people were uncivilized. And we see that there are some changes, like some people are having much of a better bureaucracy, whatever. But how much of an improvement is there? This is a very practical question because they were having, again, state power. And the idea of this national education, Minister of Education, is into the play. So it's not like at the time of the Prophet, it's not that he enforces people to go through a certain education for the first 6, 7, 8 years of their lives, so much so that after you get out of this education, you are ingrained with a certain knowledge. You cannot think otherwise. Like, we should check ourselves about especially nationality. This is what is being ingrained to our minds during the first 5, 6, 7 years of our primary school education. Right? This is because of this national education system. And all those Western powers did this in those colonies. To some extent, they managed it. But again, they did this with this many philosophers. And to what extent they managed it? This is why he's challenging. He says even they will not be able to make it 100th of what he did, what the messenger did at the time. And when he talks about, let's say, this fanatical thing, another thing at the time was maybe one of the largest thing. Tribalism was the really core of the sickness of the people at the time, which is then leading to the slavery and everything. He makes them people, which is then taking a black, like Bilal Habeshi famous, and a white to be brothers with each other. In America, up until 1960s, black people were sitting at the back of the bus, entering from a different door. White man was sitting in the front. And if the part for the white man was filled up, a white man would never sit next to a black man, but he would say to the black man, stand up, that he would take the seat of the black man. The white man would take. And this is 1960s in the civilized America. So this nationalism is, I guess, one of the strongest things, which is still a problem, a widespread problem, which is even increasing day by day nowadays. He solved that problem at his time. And not only solved it, but he reversed the problem, or making people brothers and sisters instead of enemies.
And in the context of what we discussed so far, the previous weeks, what is the point of studying this, the 8th and the 7th droplet? What do they tell us about the prophet or prophethood, as Osman would say? And I don't have the answer, but if anybody wants to help us, like, what is the point of studying 7th and the 8th droplet? Because we can take them as, we love referring our ancient fathers or our, what is the word?
Being proud of our past.
Yeah, being proud of our past. Like, is this kind of discussion that, oh, our prophet was great, he achieved such and such in such a short term. Nobody can do.
But I want so you. I mean, the question is, what is the point? I think, at least from what I've kind of heard and listened to, from what I gather, just simply that no one can change. Well, I think Birkan mentioned it. Just the idea of even changing is somewhat miraculous. An individual who lives one way or has a certain viewpoint of the world, and then somebody comes and radically alters it to the point that his entire life and therefore society changes. And I think the point here is that prophecy and Quranic teaching, and the Quranic teaching he brings, is the only way in which people truly change. as Yusuf was saying, you can come and quote unquote civilize people with your ideology or your agenda, but that in the end is egocentric. It's still an egocentric view of the world, because you do it with a certain personal agenda or motivation or goal you're looking for, whereas prophecy addresses the humanity, one's own humanity, not for his own purpose or his own benefit, but so that the human being realizes what his potentiality is and to whom he belongs and for what purpose he is and where is he going. The questions that every man asks, because in essence, everyone has a certain view of the world, and as Yusuf was saying, we're all educated within a certain view of the world. In our education or upbringing, whether it's naturalistic, atheistic, humanistic, egocentric worldview, there's always a worldview attached to everything that one is learning or doing. And to really address man, prophecy and his teaching is the only one that has any effect, because it's the only human methodology.
Jazakallah khair. That was great. So anyone else? Awesome. Go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. To add to what Suhail was saying, really we have, like in our lives, we also have a lot of teachers who come and teach us, right? Like for example, our education that we've been receiving or are receiving. And there's a big distinction being made here, at least in these droplets that we are reading. Yes, so the teacher will teach me, how to succeed in life or how to, do certain things, acquire certain skills. Yeah, but there's no real teacher that is capturing, the way how I feel within myself, my psychological state, or my, as the author puts it, the spirit side mostly is usually just the body side and, or temporary kind of, teaching or skill set that only will last till the death comes to the person or to the human being. But there's no concept of, the human potentialities that Suhail touched upon that has to be, nurtured and discovered, and all these different qualities in the universe that one is able to find out and really be amazed at. Nobody really teaches that. There is no questioning or concept of any prophethood or messengership in the education that we get here. So this is a very unique and distinct teaching that is coming through the messengership of Prophet Muhammad. And it really sets what really matters to a human being. It's something that really I can hold on to and keep with myself, because I'm looking for that eternal satisfaction, not just something that is going to last for a few centuries or, some temporary time.
I want to add, I might have missed it if it was already brought up. I apologize, but historically speaking, or at least ever for as long as I can remember growing up, specifically people born into a Muslim background or family, they have some sort of nostalgia or for, as Norsi calls, the era of bliss, and remorse for the quote-unquote downfall of Islamic world, or after the golden age, so to speak. And I don't think people realize, what is the reason for that. And really, the civilization falls or rises, as I see it, based on what its principles are. And in the case of prophecy and the companions and the subsequent generations thereafter, they're, interestingly enough, their concern was not really primarily this world. It was, where are they going? What am I even doing here? And in that regard, they achieved, what the Western world would consider, success, and politically speaking. And I don't think people really, grasp that point, is that prophecy is so profound. As Norsi says, it changes a fifth of mankind, and because what it says, it speaks regarding the truth, and the truth is powerful, and really nothing can stand in front of the truth and challenge it. But instead, people don't really look at that period or era and say, how is it that they were to rise from literally being desert nomads or shepherds, and the prophetic message spreading from east to west? That's really something to think about, because all ideologies other than prophecy have come and gone, but have never really, in a sense, changed humanity for the better, changed the world for the better as it concerns, their purpose in existence.
And like the last thing Suhail said, all these ideologies come and go. This is interesting, it's a very interesting point, although, everybody says it. But when you think about it, they really come and go. All these different ideologies. And when you look what is left, even though they are distorted, these religions, whatever they are, somehow they stay. Like even this empirical evidence tells a lot, like what is it with this so-called religion that they can stand thousands of years? Everything changes. Humanity, like we are like crazy. We try every ideology. Like even in a lifespan of just one man, all these different ideologies we go through. And like looking at myself, from my childhood today, all these different ideologies I go through, nothing stays. But this prophecy, the message brought by prophet, again, it's being distorted, it's being bended, it's being, taken from one shape to another, but there's a core, an essence, it stays there for thousands of years. Even this, very basic fact is so interesting. It tells a lot. And what Asim was saying, like there's no teachers touching our hearts, spirits. There are no teachers trying to solve our issues of eternal life or our existence, who I am. This is true. And maybe more interesting, or maybe more even dramatic, tragic, is we are not even allowed to do that. You cannot touch hearts of your students in a school. You are not allowed to. You have to accept them as they are, and you have to find a middle ground where everyone can contribute and play. You cannot talk about truth, you cannot talk about falsehood, because there is no such thing as true and false, unless it is mathematics. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, the 2 plus 2 equals to 4, not 5. You can say that, but you cannot talk about the values. You're not allowed to. Even in classrooms, about the values. You cannot teach them. You can just give them, list them, options. You can hear their options. Regardless of how stupid or how baseless their thought, they have to accept them. They have to praise them. Just the fact that they are, willing to share their ideas. No matter what they say, you have to praise them. You have to say, great point, great question. You have to. So it's just the opposite. Like we praising someone here because he was able to touch our spirits, and now we are saying in our modern society, it is not allowed to touch people's spirit.
I'm thinking about, now that we are to the end of 8th droplets, so these are all droplets. Because I am thinking, for instance, I am coming across some teacher-like figures in my life, and I am questioning whether I shall trust this person or not. Is he really telling me the truth, or is he manipulating me? This is still a valid question for me, which I keep asking to myself in order not to be deceived. So as Nursi is doing in here, we are collecting different aspects of this person in order to build this trust relation. Every single one of them is a droplet, because I can come up with an example in which a person is changing some other people's, let's say, habits, but he is manipulating them actually. Because in some other aspects, he is not passing this test. This is why Nursi is taking all those different droplets, making them together, and saying that this is why he's a trustworthy person. Because one can take it as, one by one, I can give a counterexample for every single one of them. And saying that if a person has this, well, such and such has this aspect as well, but he's a terrorist, for example, or he's a terrorist leader. But the ones that follow him are blindly following him, and he didn't subjugate them by power. They are willingly becoming, let's say, suicide bombers, sort of. So this is why I guess we need to also keep that in perspective and say that in here the author is, if you like, combining strings. Every single one of those strings by itself might not be proving the point. But if you combine those strings, they become a rope, which is becoming very strong. So we should also keep that in perspective. Going back to, I said this because of your initial question, what are we doing in here? Why did we study 7th and 8th droplets? Because still we are trying to get to know this, one of the 3 proofs. At the beginning he said there are 3 proofs that tell us about our maker. One was the Quran, the other one was the existence of the universe, and the third one was the messenger. And he said, let's get acquainted with, let's get to know this person. So this is why we are trying to get to know him. Then we will listen to him and interpret what he says based on who he is. Because otherwise, it's not possible to interpret the sayings of a person without knowing who he is. This is why this initial step is necessary. We need to come up with a definition and description. First of all, for the prophethood, then for this person specifically, then we will evaluate what he says. We will interpret what he says. We cannot do this the other way around. We cannot say that, oh, since he's saying so, let's say I start directly from his sayings and then try to build up. It doesn't work like that.
So when you put it in that context, I guess it also becomes important, like with what intentions you are listening to this guy, or with what intentions you are trying to learn about this guy. Right? Yeah, you can study the Prophet from an Orientalist perspective, or you can study Prophet as an academic, like his history, his sayings, his message, like from different perspective, but as an academic. But here, I guess he's also giving a clue or maybe a glimpse of what intentions you should have when you are searching for your prophet. Like all these qualities he's listing, he was able to touch their spirit, the soul. He was able to transform them. He was able to save them from their savage traditions and so on. I guess he's also telling us that these should be also your purpose to go to. Want to be saved. You should want to be saved from your savage traditions. Realize that you have such a savage tradition and look for the prophet who can save you from savage traditions, who can change you, who can take these bad habits of you, like cigarette smoking, and replace them with good deeds.
She is using this as a general methodology, so I guess it's worthy to mention a lot in terms of methodology. Because as you were saying, the Orientalist perspective for criticizing the messenger, just check today's media. What they do is they say that, okay, he got married with this many women, or he got married with a girl at that age, or he got married with his adopted son's ex-wife. And since these are like sensitive topics and you do not know the man, then you evaluate this action based on your manhood, or an average man in your society being very much inclined for this sort of relationships. We start interpreting the action from our perspective, not from who he was, therefore what was his motivation, but instead we are trying to build up the personality of this person based on our interpretation of the actions. And what is our interpretation based on? Our understanding of being a man. Mm-hmm. We have no concept of a message or messenger, whatever. So this is why before listening to his message, Moshe says we first need to know who he is. We cannot do the other way around.
And also you should be aware who you are as well. Like when you say we make up these interpretations based on our understanding of being men. Right? He's also saying that this is the understanding you should have when you approach the prophet. You should realize you are not a material boy or man in in the sense you use, but you are someone who needs to be transformed. Look prophet from this perspective.
This is why, like a few months back, I was having a conversation with a person coming from a Muslim upbringing, but he was saying that he's an atheist.
Muslim
upbringing. He was born in a Muslim country. So, but for some reason, he decided to become an atheist. Not even an atheist. He was saying, I'm a deist. So he was not courageous enough to become an atheist. But the point was, this is what he was constantly bringing up. I was trying to take the discussion to the point of, are you happy with your existence? Do you have any problem or any trouble, sort of? But he didn't want to come there. He constantly say that, well, but this man got married this many times, whatever. So taking it from there, it's becoming easier for an escape or to distort the message by starting from there. And this is constantly being done from this Orientalist perspective. It has been done in history, it's still being done. But I guess in here, the methodology is really important and nice, and also we should keep that in mind. And if someone comes up with, for example, or maybe ourselves, questions with, well, why did he get married, for example, or this sort of things in his life, then the right place to start is not to investigate or read the historical surroundings of this action itself. The problem is with my description of who he is in the first place. This is why I am troubled with interpreting the case.
If you don't know what a surgeon is, like when you see someone cutting a body, you would directly jump in the conclusion that he's a murderer. But if you start from who this guy is and what he is doing, why he is doing, and then looking at the scene, it changes the interpretation.
Any comments for the 8th droplets?
You know, Nursi, he, I don't think this is the first time he brings up cigarette smoking. I'm guessing it was a big issue for him or for people around him. But, you know, it's, you know, somewhat personal because, you know, I'm in medicine, and telling people to, you know, quit smoking, not drink, don't do any drugs. You know, it feels somewhat, you know, even though I do it because it's my, you know, job, and you can't really talk about the reason other than maybe health concerns. You know, prophecy is really, to me, the reason, or what he says for, you know, giving up these bad habits. You know, what reason does he have for saying what he says? And that really is convincing. And the people who, you know, at least working in medicine, I mean, these are people who are, you know, grew up Christians or, you know, go to church. And the people who I find that quite a few of them who say I stopped drinking or I stopped smoking, you know, interestingly enough, the common thing I hear is they tell me I made a promise to God, or I made a vow to God that I would give up these things, in that they make a commitment not based on something, you know, within themselves, but as it has to do with who their creator is, whether they're aware of it or not. But, you know, when they say that, it somehow, you know, alludes to that, or it speaks to, you know, people's humanity, that no one really can do anything with conviction, true conviction, especially something which requires you to give up something you're doing, unless it pertains to one's maker. And in that sense, that's what prophecy, you know, comes and teaches.
So, do you mind like opening it up a little bit more? So, what exactly you mean? People cannot do anything by just conviction, but they need to rely upon their creator.
You know, the reason people they have to, doing something out of personal conviction for one's own personal sake. Okay, what I mean to say is that anything that one usually does has to do with, in reference to what one worships. For example, if I have a personal conviction that I want to be a leader or a president, and I will do anything to do so, in a sense, quite often, the reason being is that they take as their sort of, you know, object of worship is power or their egocentrism. So what I mean to say is that anything that one does is always in reference to something or someone external to that individual. I can't quit smoking just to quit smoking. Maybe my object of worship is life or this world, so I want to quit smoking so I can live as long as I want to live in this world. But usually what I find is that that's not what the people who quit smoking and feel the most satisfied are the ones who say that I did this for God. Whatever they understand from that, but they feel as though they are being true to, what their humanity is, their human potentiality, what they've been endowed with. And at least that's what I understand from it, that, this is how my Creator made me, and I'm going to be true to his, the way he made me, so I'm going to give up on these things. And to me, that's really the only long-lasting effect or change that can take place. And prophecy in that regard comes and educates people in that respect. There's no other possible way that one man can overturn all of society in only 2 decades. There's no other way, and it's never, ever happened since then.
This is a really interesting point. I never thought it that way. Like, this close relationship, not maybe even close, like a interwoven relation between action and worship, like doing things, being convinced in the name of object of your worship. That's an interesting point. And the way you tied it up with he's achieving all this in a very short time, because there was a reference to the object of worship or the Creator, that was also interesting. Jazakallah khair, alhamdulillah.
Shall we continue with the 9th droplet? Any other comments? Not even from Abdurrahman? No questions?
He's so silent today, I don't know what happened.
He's sleeping.
He is? Okay.
9th droplet. Also, you know that an insignificant man of small standing among a small community in a disputed matter of small importance cannot tell a small but shameful lie brazen-faced, and without fear, without displaying anxiety, or disquiet enough to inform the enemies at his side of his deception.
Disquiet enough to inform the enemies at his side of his deception? I couldn't understand it.
Bir meselede münazaralı bir davada hicapsız, pervasız, küçük fakat hacaret haber bir yılanı, düşmanları yanında hilesi hissedilmeyecek derecede teessür ettiğini açık göstermeden söyleyemez.
Okay. So you're just saying that it is really hard to tell a lie, especially in front of your enemies, even though it is a very insignificant matter. Okay.
Now, look at that being. Although he undertook a tremendous task. So before going there, so is the first part clear? Someone who is going to tell a small lie about the insignificant thing just to cover up. It's not that easy. Because if it turns out, he specifically says a shameful lie, because if people figure out that he was lying, things are going to turn upside down.
I was trying to think a counterexample, because when someone comes with such a claim, it is not easy, or it's not possible. And directly think about, but no, there are some people who can lie easily. But then I realized, I guess, even the fact that I can think of such people, like who can lie easily, and because these people are so exceptional from my perspective, this also supports what he's saying. Like, when someone can lie without any fear or anxiety, this is so exceptional for us. It becomes easy to find example in such cases. So that means what he's saying is right. Like, it's not any easy without any anxiety and fear. And when someone can do this, you think he's doing something exceptional. So it's an extraordinary case.
They're called pathologic liars in that it's a pathology. It's not, as you said, it's considered, remarkable that someone can lie and lie consistently.
Yes. Yeah, so it's pathology. It's not normal, let's say, typical.
Now look at that being. Although he undertook a tremendous task which required an official of great authority and great standing, and a situation of great security, can any contradiction at all be found in the words he uttered among a community of great size in the face of great hostility, concerning a great cause and matters of great significance? With great ease and freedom, without fear, hesitation, diffidence, or anxiety, with pure sincerity, great seriousness, and in an intense, elevated manner that angered his enemies. Is it at all possible that any trickery should have been involved?
So I can understand the text, I can follow it, but I'm having difficult time to understand the purpose here. The purpose of this 9 droplet. Is he just saying that he was addressing a huge community about very important topics, therefore he couldn't be lying? It can't be that naive or simple. So what is the purpose here?
No, I compare it to like a politician or a leader. For example, in World War II era, all these dictators, Nazi Germany, Hitler or Stalin or Mussolini, they all deceived their people based on a lie, whether it was communism, Nazism, and they were able to direct people, their anger or their attitude or their fear or hatred towards certain people or certain religions, and they were able to do that based on a complete deception. But the reason being, to me, is that they were able to do so because they appeal to human ego. Whereas if you appeal, as in prophecy, to the intellect and the heart, it is, if not near impossible to deceive an individual. It's, at least from my experience, it's easier to convince somebody of of some sort of political agenda than it is to convince someone of belief, because it has to correspond with their own humanity and it goes against their ego. So for one man to do so, and not only to speak about something, but I think Norsi says this in some other places in the words, he's either speaking the greatest lie ever spoken, because to speak on behalf of the creator of the universe and to speak falsehood would be the greatest lie, or to speak the greatest truth on behalf of the creator of the universe. Either he's the greatest liar or greatest truth teller. And the truth is only known in as much as the one receiving it is convinced of it, certain of it, as it corresponds through humanity. And by the same breath, it goes against the egocentrism of man. So for him to do that, it can't be anything other than the truth. For one man to do that without, as he says, hesitation or fear or anxiety. it's not possible, because it's much easier, infinitely easier to speak to the ego, because as long as you speak to it what it wants to hear.
It's also interesting when he says he's talking to a community of great size in the face of great hostility. Hostility concerning great cause and matters of great significance. So what he's talking about is so important. And in a time which is so important, for a community which is so important, vegan. And then he does this second part is interesting to me, with great ease and freedom, without fear, hesitation, diffidence, or anxiety. He's so, and from one perspective, so relaxed. He's so certain what he's talking about. With pure sincerity, great seriousness, and in an intense and elevated manner. So this character, or I guess this is a character of the person plus character of the message. Because if the message you're conveying is not the truth, I'm not sure if it is any possible to have such an ease and freedom, or no hesitation, no anxiety. Like you're not even thinking that, okay, I'm telling this to Yusuf, but would it work really? Like I'm trying to convince him or transform him, and I always has this hesitation when I talk to, let's say, my wife. Like I'm trying to tell her something, I always have this hesitation in my mind. Like, would it really work? Am I saying, the right thing? I always have this anxiety. I'm sure it's same for her as well. Like, she wants me to do something. She tries all these games or strategies, right? But always with a hesitation. Like, would it really work? Am I taking the right step here? And he says, with no hesitation, no anxiety, pure sincerity.
I think it's important to distinguish truth and lies, and also the position of the person that is in question now. So for example, for politicians, especially today, we are okay with them saying lies, as long as they don't lie the whole time. We are okay with them occasionally telling lies. Or we are saying that this is the nature of this business, they will lie, because this is how it is. Before the elections, all sorts of claims, if I do this, I'm going to make a wall, whatever. After the elections, things are changing. And this is, we are quite used to that, and we accept this very well. But for messenger, by definition, the messenger needs to be the person who should tell me the truth. And truth is, in this sense, really one. Not that, because lies are all possible answers, possible descriptions, but truth should be coming really explaining how it points to the original source. You can tell a lot of lies about a thing, but the truth about the thing, like 2 + 2 = 4, it's one answer. But you can say that 2 + 2 = 5, 2 + 2 = 6, infinitely many answers are out there. So for truth, making a consistent truth is going to be collapsed by a single lie. But when it comes to lies, like you cannot really make a castle out of lies, because it's going to collapse from some point. Lies do not add up. They ought to collapse at some point. So, but if you are trying to make a castle out of truth, you have to make sure that there's not going to be a single lie which is going to contradict. This is where true and lie differs really, because truth has to be based on the existence, because there is a way for me to verify truthfulness. It has to be aligned with my humanity, with the existence that I'm experiencing. So this person, by his duty, is claiming that I am telling the truth. So for him, telling a lie is much more, or for someone to be claiming this position, telling a lie is much different than a politician today telling a lie. So this is why a person at such a position telling a lie would be much more under pressure than a politician today telling a lie.
So then with this ninth droplet, he's giving another aspect of the prophet. Whatever he says must be true. Whatever he says, he must be the one convinced first, because it's talking about the sincerity. Right? And you should see this fact, like what he's saying is truth, and he's convinced himself from his actions and the way he speaks to you or reaches to you.
Because another option might be if this person is, let's say, mad, mentally not functioning. Maybe he can be courageous to say whatever. But then you will see a lot of inconsistencies in what he says. Now we are talking about a person who keeps building this castle of truth, one after another, and he is always as secure. So we need to keep that in perspective. Not in a single frame of his life, he was so secure while telling the truth. So this is the evidence that he must be the prophet. Not like that, but now we are building up this castle of truth, and not even a single stone of lies can be fitting in this building, because it's going to really rot everything. A single lie within the castle of truth is going to collapse everything. Because then people will say that, oh, he deceived me with that. Maybe he was deceiving me with everything else as well. So your trustworthiness is ruined. This is why he was saying that he undertook a tremendous task. So we need to underline this tremendous task part of it. It's not only being leader of a community like a politician today is being. The tremendous task in here is to tell people the truth of existence, which cannot allow any single hesitation, any single lie within the truth.
Yeah, I want to add to what you both said. He's so convinced himself, as you said, that he's not concerned about what others necessarily respond to what he says. He's so at ease because he's so certain of it himself. His belief is not predicated or upon the acceptance of others. And based on that, Birkan was saying, when you think about it, you look at historically, every sort of ruler or politician, every major historical leader has had some sort of, security state, security apparatus, intelligence agency in order to protect their rule, their position, primarily because they know that their place is transient and that not everyone is in support of them. So their rulership or leadership is predicated upon the acceptance of others. So it always looks to man because that's what power is. Whereas in a sense, prophecy, he has found the true source of, strength and power, and that's in belief. And so he doesn't need any of those things, and he's not concerned. All he is demonstrating it to people is that you too can find the same strength and power within yourself through belief. And that's why he's not in need of any of those things. That's why he can be at ease without ever having any sort of protection or agency or security, because his message is not predicated upon what others think of him.
This is very interesting because from Quran we know of some prophets who didn't have much or maybe any followers, not even their families, right? But still they are being referred and praised as prophets. Because as Suhail was saying, like their message or their conviction was not predicated on others' belief, what they thought about them. It didn't rely on their conviction. It was their own conviction that being illuminating us as well. I mean, yes, we study the companions, how they lived, how they followed him, and so on. But even for prophets who didn't have these companions, such companions, we still being able to benefit from them. Their conviction, their own, let me use the author's words, their own seriousness, their own sincerity, their own being free of anxiety or having this great ease and freedom is enough to illuminate me.
Right. Now that you gave the example of previous prophets, like this, in the case of Isa alayhi salam, he was under pressure of first Jews, like the temple, and then also the Roman kings. But he kept challenging them. He didn't step back, he didn't distort, he didn't hide what he was saying. He was quite outspoken, saying whatever he is convinced that is the truth. And that the message is not self-contradicting or neither contradicting the truth that we are living or the things that we are experiencing.
It's so powerful, isn't it? Like a man being so sincere, so relaxed, not relaxed in a sense, get high or something, but relaxed in terms of like being free of anxiety, being convinced, and living in peace with his conviction, being sincere, and speaking. This is so powerful. I guess it's powerful enough to destroy the Roman Empire. Just sincerity and conviction.
And that he also mentioned that he was in need of security, but he didn't have security. His life was under threat.
Let's say he didn't have external security.
Yes. And his life was under threat for several times. But he was secure. He was not afraid of being killed or his message is going to be terminated. He was even convinced about that. He was even convinced that this message is under guarantee of the Creator, so is my life. So he was living a life without the fear for having security around him. Because when he was the last person to migrate from Mecca to Medina, he sent everybody, and as the last person he migrated.
That's also interesting, right? I mean, he is the one being threatened to be killed, like first and foremost, but still he waits till the end.
So he doesn't live with a group of people which can provide security for him. And even in the cave, for example, that as it is being narrated, that they were in the cave with Abu Bakr, and those people came after following their traces. So the people in the cave see the people outside, but the people outside do not see the people in the cave. And Abu Bakr was at the time anxious, saying that if they were to kneel down, they are going to see us, but they don't. So in there, the messenger says, don't be upset, or don't be afraid. There are, I guess, two different narrations. God is with us. So such a conviction, such a security. And he is using this to say that is it at all possible that any trickery should have been involved in such a man, in such a status, in such a position, in such a message? God forbid, it is not but revelation inspired. It's from Quran chapter 53, verse number 4.
So could you read it again? It is, in my book it says it is not. What does it mean?
It is not, but illa except. It's nothing but revelation inspired.
Okay.
I guess
It's nothing but revelation. Okay. It is nothing but revelation inspired.
So the thing that he speaks. So the verse before this one is وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. So he doesn't speak out of his hawa, like his fancy.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever he speaks is from revelation.
Which surah is that? 53? Najm, right? Okay. Because the part you said, he doesn't speak out of his fancy. I guess there are two different words there. One is like he's not speaking out of his fancy, or like he's not neither knowingly or unknowingly deceived. The words used there, I guess, means like one is knowingly being deceived or the other one is unknowingly being deceived. So he's neither of them.
Yeah, the second verse is مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى. Your friend is not mad.
Yes.
Not that he is intentionally lying, or because with the second verse he is saying that it's not that he is not mentally sound. Because they also said that this is a madman. This was one of the claims that was made at the time. So the truth does not deceive, and one who perceives the truth is not deceived.
This gives very much security to the person. Like when I read this, if this is true, I say, then there can be peace in my life. Because, so what he says, the truth does not deceive. It gives me a reference point that I can rely on. Even though if I don't know what is the truth, it doesn't matter. I still know that there is something true, at least for me. There is a truth, and this truth does not deceive. Meaning, when I reach it, I will know it. It will give me security. So, having such an understanding, I guess it's so relaxing. It's not that, I'm in a dark room and there is no escape from it. No, it says there is light. Just look for it.
And I think this is a statement about human nature. So he's saying that the one who perceives the truth is not deceived. So it's in man's nature that once you see truth, you recognize truth, you appreciate truth. Saying that, we can talk about that. If anybody has any further comment on that, I would be very much interested to hear it. The truth does not deceive, because truth is aligned with what we experience. So you can confirm truthfulness of a thing.
You cannot?
You can confirm truthfulness. Because what's going to be my reference point? Because if truth is as a reference to something else, as this reference point changes, my truth will change. But the way I understand here is once truth is shown to me, I will recognize truth. As if in humans' essence, as if in humans' essence, there is this ability ingrained in there to recognize truth. And this takes me back to how we, in Quranic language, this is وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, and he taught Adam the names, so as if
All of them.
And these are hardwired in human to recognize. And in here, although the T of truth is lowercase, the truth with uppercase T, because the truth is the creator, the divine. The truth does not deceive, and one who perceives the truth is not deceived. Human is hardwired to recognize the things that come from the creator, the truth. So I guess he is, the way I feel it is, he's building up his argument on top of that.
And the way it is put, like, truth does not deceive, the one who perceives the truth is not deceived. It is so nice because it's also, like, doesn't require you to attach a certain ideology, certain worldview. I mean, whether you believe in relativism, whether you believe in non-relative, it doesn't matter. What it says, if something is truth for you, I mean, if something is truth that you should reach, you will know it. Whether it is different from for you and for someone else, that doesn't matter. You will know it. It will not deceive you. It will be the thing that you should be following in your path. And when someone follows the truth, he is not deceived. Meaning, even if I see some differences between me and you, for instance, but when I see the sincerity in you, the ease and freedom in you, being free of anxiety, I will know that this is what is true in your case. It will not deceive you, and you will not be deceived. It is also possible that the truth, whatever truth is for you, also is true for me. I'm not arguing against or for this. In both cases, it works nicely. Truth does not deceive, and the one who perceives truth is not deceived. This gives, like, as I said first, it gives a really nice security, a peaceful mind, and also it gives I cannot find the word, but it gives a solid ground. It's like, yeah, solid ground that we can communicate, that we can share, that we can, enjoy the truth through our not being deceived. I will know that you are not deceived, and you will know that I am not deceived. It's 9:04, so you are the moderator if you want to close, otherwise we can continue.
So the last sentence was, how could a fancy appear to one who sees the truth to be the truth and deceive him? So how can a fancy deceive someone that is a person of truth, or a person who is seeking truth, scaling truth, searching truth to be as truth, although it is a deception?
So it's like once you taste the truth, you cannot forget it.
Now, because he's considering the case that maybe he was a good man, but he himself was deceived, he himself was deluded or very much convinced about a lie. Isn't it a possibility? So I guess he is now addressing this option. Because a person might be a zealot of defending, but he thinks a falsehood to be truth. This is why he is defending. So maybe he has an excuse at least. Now he is saying that a person who seeks for truth should be able to discern truth from falsehood. So inshallah, let's continue from 10th droplet next week. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.